Hi, I want to do a top 5 favorite memoirs. I don't know. There's more than 5. But memoirs are one of my favorite genre. I just enjoy reading about people's lives and the adversity that they've faced and things they've learned from it, different experiences than I've had. You can learn about different areas of the world, different belief systems. You can learn about how similar belief systems impact someone in a totally different way. There's just so much you can learn from a memoir. And I think it's something that we should definitely try and read more of. I want to read more of. So I want to go over a couple that I haven't really talked about, I don't think, on my channel yet. And because in order for me to keep a memoir, I have to really, really enjoy it, feel like I'm going to go back to it. If not, I'll try and pass it on to someone else. One of the first memoirs that I can remember really standing out for me was I Am by Maggie O'Farrell, 17 Brushes with Death. This one came out in 2017, and I did not own this when I read it. I got it out from the library and took it. I had become my mom's caregiver. I do remember that. I was already her caregiver, and I was going to California to see a friend, and I read this in the 5-hour flight. It's a 5-hour flight from Atlanta to California, and so I read this. It's 285 pages, this copy is, and it's basically 17 different instances in Maggie O'Farrell's life where it was either a full-on near-death experience, or something happened with one of her kids, I know, and I just love Maggie O'Farrell's writing, and this was my second time reading a Maggie O'Farrell book. I previously had read the Esme Lennox book. I can't remember the title, the full title, and I had enjoyed her writing in that. So this was, perfect for me to pick up. I do want to reread this because, like I said, I had a library copy, and so I did not notate any of the lines that I enjoyed, which I do like to do in my memoirs especially. And I'm at a different place in my life, and I think that you can definitely, depending on where you're at in life, when you read something will of course impact your reading experience of it and what parts of the memoir kind of stick out for you. Another one I read and I got mainly because of the title. First off, I was attracted to it because the title is Memorial Drive. This is a daughter's memoir by Natasha Trethewey. Natasha Trethewey is a poet. She is, she's won the Pulitzer Prize for poetry. And Memorial Drive is kind of a central road that connects kind of the east side of the city of Atlanta to the West End area. And so that attracted to me this first. And then it's a true crime story, which I do like reading. True crime, more of how it impacts the victims and the victims' families. And this is about Natasha's mother's murder, and by the hands of a family member, and kind of how that act of violence impacts her throughout her life. And I have found that not always, but a lot of times when a poet writes a full-length book, whether it be fiction or nonfiction, it's very lyrical, it's very beautiful. There's definitely points in this that, you know, you can definitely tell that the author is a poet. And the beautiful language that she uses to describe her mother, even when she's confused about some of the choices that her mom makes. Yeah, it's just really beautiful. And it's one thing I appreciated, and something that I dealt with myself when becoming my mother's caregiver, is looking at your parent. For me, you know, mother, father, whoever your main caregiver was when you were a child, looking at them from adult eyes is a different experience. And I think one that is eye-opening, sometimes very confusing, about why the parent made certain choices. And realizing that a lot of your own insecurities or a lot of your motivations, could be some parallels. It could be completely different. It could be, you know, you saw something that you definitely didn't want to do from an experience of a parent, and yet when you see the same situation from adult eyes, it looks more understandable, if that makes sense. But this memoir is beautiful, and I highly recommend it. Another memoir that I read that kind of took me a little by surprise. This is No One Tells You by Glennis McNichol. And what caught me by surprise was I read this because Glennis McNichol wrote this on the eve of her 40th birthday. Despite a successful career and an exciting life in New York City, Glennis was constantly reminded she had neither of the things the world expected of a woman her age: a partner and a baby. That attracted me because it's very similar for me, that there's a lot of pressure for women to have this, to partner up, to procreate. And that's why I picked this book up. In this book, there is also the experience of dealing with a parent's illness. That caught me by surprise because this was in the same time frame. I read this in the same time frame that my mom got sick. And yeah, just seeing the connection to that was made this book so much more impactful. I'm pretty sure I listened to the audiobook and then bought a copy because I knew I would want to read it again. The next few are going to be, actually all the rest of them are chronic illness memoirs. I've mentioned before Between Two Kingdoms by Sulika Jawad. Her memoir, I mean, she's a beautiful writer. If you follow her on any of the social media, her writing is just amazing. The experience she has of being diagnosed with cancer, a very aggressive form of cancer at a very young age, in her early 20s, when women are pushed to start thinking about that marriage and motherhood. And for Sulika, it was really, just fighting to live and going through all these medical procedures. The book really looks at her memoir. This memoir looks at her experience with the man she's in a relationship with at the time and the man she thinks she's going to marry. Her relationship with her parents, which really does fascinate me. It's one of the areas of life that do really fascinate me, is when the child becomes the adult and then relating to your parent as an adult, but also their child. And the other way of that as well is your parent is an adult and also your parent. And so I think that there is definitely some of that in Between Two Kingdoms as well. And I just think it's a beautiful read. I don't own a copy yet. I hope to soon. Highly recommend. Then we have more chronic illness memoirs. You'll see that there's a lot on here just because I do tend to read chronic illness memoirs, disability memoirs. That's a huge part of my life. And I definitely relate. The ones that stick in my mind are ones that I can relate to. The first one is Places I've Taken My Body, essays by Molly McCulley Brown. Molly is a poet. She is also a professor, and this is her collection of essays. Just kind of looks at her life, in academia, and also with a disability that she had from a young age and how that impacts her life. I like this, especially it talks about her experience in the world with a mobility impairment, her experience in the workplace, and her experience in the social aspects of life using a mobility aid, and how that impacts the people around her, the experiences, what people say to her. I just really think that this is it's a good place to go if you want to know more about how a disability impacts someone, across the lifespan, and also fully acknowledging and realizing Molly's only, I think she's in her early 30s, maybe late 20s. So I'm hoping she makes this something that she writes more essays down the line. Another one is The Tiger in the Cage, a memoir of a body in crisis by Emma Bolden. This talks a lot about experiencing symptoms that are not taken seriously, trying to figure out why you feel so awful all the time. And also a lot of connections to women and menstruation that for many years has been any kind of illness that a woman experienced was just equated with, oh, it's your period. Oh, it's cramps. Oh, that's totally normal. And yeah, I can definitely relate to this. And I know I've said that multiple times, but I really can. Another one is Head Above Water, Reflections on Illness by Shad Al-Shamari. This is about the author's experience with multiple sclerosis and going to get a degree in another country. She is from Kuwait, and she goes to the UK to get her degree. And seeing the different medical reactions and establishments in those different countries, seeing how she's treated, also seeing from an academic career perspective what she encounters, some of her experiences with some of the students that she has. It is very moving and very eye-opening from the perspective of seeing what she dealt with in Kuwait, and how her family and she work towards this goal. She, keeps her focus on her goal of getting her degree and working in academia. And still, it's a lot of times you have a diagnosis and then it's like, well, you just have to give up your career. You just got to go let your parents take care of you or something like that. And that's not a complete life. And that's something that Al-Shamari talks about. And I could definitely relate to that. Another one I've mentioned once or twice before, but one that I think is often overlooked because of the author's fictional work. This is Giving Up the Ghost by Hilary Mantel. This is about her experience with, it takes a long time for her to get any kind of diagnosis, but she deals with early symptoms in childhood that she doesn't know or can't explain. The family just kind of shakes it off, and how she goes through life dealing with those effects. And it's it's a more dense read, I think, as Hilary Mantel was known for. Beautiful language. I found that I definitely had to sit with it longer than I feel like I probably gave myself the time for. So just keep that in mind if you go for this. But I was in the bookstore the other day and I saw a number of copies of this, and it encouraged me because, you know, it was an independent bookstore. They're not going to order copies if they're not selling. So I'm hoping that more people are reading it. And I still have not read her fiction. I've got it on my shelves. I need to read that. And then the last one I'm going to mention is Some of Us Just Fall on Nature and Not Getting Better by Polly Atkin. This is for a beautiful cover. The paperback, the US paperback copy, is also a beautiful cover, but I cannot justify getting 2 books. I ordered this from the UK because it came out a lot sooner over there. And this talks about Polly's experience with EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And the first line on the top of the synopsis: long before I knew I was sick, I knew I was breakable. And this talks about her growing up with misdiagnoses, and EDS is common for supplications, fractures, and this book talks a lot about Polly's draw to the water and swimming. And I have just this year gotten back into swimming for exercise, and this was definitely part of the pull for me to do that. Also, my doctor suggested it as well. I don't have a pool readily accessible. I have to pay for membership to get access to a pool, and it just always fell off the priority list for finances. But this is definitely Polly's writing and connection to nature was very spiritual for me. It really impacted me in a way that I didn't expect. And I live in the middle of a city. I'm fortunate to have a backyard, and just taking time to walk in the backyard with the dogs, even if I can't take them on a walk due to illness, I could, sit outside, or the days when I do feel well, I have a park that I can walk to that has hiking trails in it, and just making that more of a priority for my energy. I feel like Polly really inspired me to do that, and I highly recommend this book for many people, even if you don't have a disability. And I want to read, where's the quote that so illness makes storytellers of us all, but patients know that our version of the story is mistrusted instinctively and as a matter of course. And it goes into her experience being dismissed, not believed. And she writes, "I've written this book because I think the stories we tell and how we tell them are important. I want to change the stories we tell about living with pain, about disability. I know I can't change other people's ways of telling. What I can do is offer a different narrative." And I think she absolutely does that. If you have a loved one or a friend that has a disability of any sort, this is definitely a book that I would recommend you read. Yeah. So that's just my take on Memoir. I'm sure I'll do a follow-up to this in the future after I've read more memoirs, because it's definitely one of my favorite nonfiction and something I go to a lot. I definitely go, the library, New Memoirs is a shelf that I visit really frequently. And I've got one from the library right now that I hope to read and review for you soon. I hope you have a great day. And if you would like to support my channel, please click the subscribe and notification bell so you'll know when I post more videos. Take care.